Hi, it's Rob from Property Investments UK. In today's video, we're going to be looking at how to negotiate a house price and, very importantly, how you can get £10,000 knocked off your next purchase. So in this property investment tip, we're going to be looking at how you can negotiate house prices. Now, this video will help both homeowners and property investors alike. It's not just a property investment video in that respect. Now, as a bit of a background to property prices, I used to work as an estate agent back in 2007. Now, the model of how to value properties has been very similar during that time frame. And what estate agents typically look to do is guide the valuations based on what's on the local market, but also based on the conversation they have with a home seller. So if that seller says to them they want to put it on the market for a certain price, most estate agents will agree with that and look to market it at that price. So it's not like there's some kind of scientific aspect that says, right, this is the definite price a property is worth. There's a lot of guesstimation when it comes to valuing houses. So what you'll tend to find is a property on the market, if it's a very buoyant market, will go on the market and might sell quickly because it was over or underpriced. But it's probably because they couldn't anticipate how buoyant the market was and how much demand there was going to be. Likewise, on the flip side, if the market's very slow and the property goes on maybe a bit too high, it might take a long time to sell. Just the agent and the homeowner didn't get that pricing right when they put it on the market. But the understanding of how a price is kind of created is important to then how you negotiate it later down the line. So with that negotiation aspect, there's probably three key questions that I'd suggest you ask your estate agent. Now, the first one is, why is the vendor selling? Now, not every estate agent will even know, and not every estate agent will give you the information, but by simply asking that one question, it will open up a little bit of a conversation. And the owner might be selling because they're relocating. It could be a bank that's selling the property, maybe it's a repossession. It could be a developer that's selling the property, or a retired landlord that no longer kind of wants the property. Whatever the situation is, it will give you an insight in terms of the reasons and the mentality and the thought process behind why that property is being sold, and then potentially how motivated that seller might be. So the second question I'd look to ask your estate agent is how long the property has been on the market for. Now, if it's been on for, say, 6 or 9 months, it doesn't mean it's a bad deal or a bad property. It just might not have been marketed correctly during that time frame. So the pictures might not show the real story. So maybe it's a property that needs a lot of work doing to it, and then when people go and view it, it's not what they quite anticipated. But if you understand how long it's been on the market for, you can get a feel for how motivated that seller is. Has the price changed during that time frame? When it went on the market, was it advertised as a different type of project or property than it is now? Maybe got the description wrong, maybe they got the pictures wrong. You just want to try and build up a bigger picture as to what that property currently is and what the kind of motivation behind the seller might be. And a third question is simply, have they had any offers on the property? This will give you an idea as where the property currently is at. Now, sometimes we've spoken to estate agents and discussed a property and they said, yeah, they did have an offer. The offer was probably 6 months or so ago now, and they didn't accept it at the time, but they'd really like to accept it now if it came along at the same price. Well, that's great. What price was it? You start to then get in a conversation and try and understand a little bit more about what that property kind of situation is. And if people have been offering on the property, it's a brand new listing, loads of offers, you probably know that it's going to be a very competitive property. If it's a property that's had offers in the past, nothing currently, then it gives you maybe opportunities and angles to try and help negotiate that offer as well. Now, it's important to consider with all of these kind of tips and information, your role in the kind of the buying cycle, if it were. So the estate agents are working on behalf of the seller. They get paid by the seller, they get a commission from the seller for selling that property. So they're going to be more motivated to help that seller as their client. With that in mind, estate agents are trained to try and negotiate the price of a property up higher, or an offer of a property up higher than hopefully what they're getting in from kind of clients. So it's important to understand where they're coming from, where you're coming from, and how you can hopefully try and meet and get an offer that's accepted. There's a couple of key things to consider with your offer. Now, what we looked at earlier on in the video is ways to understand what the motivation is of the seller, who the seller is, what their reasons are for selling. Combine this now with the way in which you can frame and position your offer to the estate agent. It's going to get you much closer to getting a price that you like, and also ideally £10,000 off that purchase price. So the first thing to consider is how you frame that offer and position it. Now when I mean that, it's by looking at what other property prices are on the market and then wrap that up into your proposal and your offer to the estate agent. So instead of going in and saying like, I really like this house, I want to offer, it's on the market for 100,000, I want to offer 90,000, let's say. On its own, it doesn't really kind of mean much, and it's easy for the estate agent to dismiss. However, if you go to them and say, look, I really like this house, we've got other properties that we're considering in the local area. Number 1 Sycamore has sold recently, that only sold for 80,000, and number 1 High Street sold recently, that only sold for 85,000. So I can't offer too much on the property. I'm probably going to be around the kind of the 89, 90,000 mark. It puts your offer in a much stronger position than just simply going in there with an offer of 90,000. Another thing to consider is try not to go in with very obvious numbers, again, that are easy to dismiss. So if it's your very first offer and you go in with an offer of 90,000 in this example, it's very easy for the estate agent or the vendor to think, well, okay, they're just trying an offer, so let's reject that and see what else they come back with. If you come back with a bit more of a random number, so if you make your first offer 89,000 or 91,000, very often, whether there is or not, there's more thought gone into that offer because it's a more obscure number. So when you speak to the estate agent on it and you say, look, I can offer 91,000 on the property or 89,000 on the property, they're going to take it a lot more seriously. And the conversation with the vendor is going to be very different when they're discussing that offer, and you get much closer to get an offer accepted much quicker than going in with round numbers. And finally, which goes alongside that, is don't increase in set numbers either. So if you're going in with an offer, let's say of 85,000, don't then make your next offer 90,000 and go in with a set kind of increase. If you go in with an offer of 85,000, I'd probably say your next offer is going to be along the lines of 87 or 87,500 or 87,300. Another type of kind of random number that's going to come across with a lot more thought and a lot more kind of vision with it than just going out there with a kind of a set number when you're speaking to the estate agent. So if you combine the initial questions that you're kind of asking the estate agent with some kind of negotiation tactics as a homeowner wanting to buy kind of your first property or your next property, or as an investor wanting to buy an investment property, those tips alone will get you much closer to getting a better deal on your purchase and hopefully getting some money off that deal and getting to a stage where you can maybe get £10,000 or even more off your property purchase. Hope that helps. Any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and look forward to catching up with the next video. All the best. Take care. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this content and you'd like to join our free online property training course, we've got a link for it on this page. And in there we cover a range of different property strategies to help you get started, either building a long-term property portfolio or creating cash flowing property business. We also look at ways to increase your return on investment with any of the properties you're maybe considering. And we also have a couple of cheat sheets and downloadable documents in there as well. Simply click on the link to join the free training course today.